Well, I had a conversation with a young lady this afternoon that I truly enjoyed ministering to, and she was struggling with a problem with fear. And I remember, and I'm laughing at myself because I remember what it was like to be so fearful over everything and how God delivered me. and, and how I overcame my fears. Fear would take a hold of me from head to toe and just consume my whole body, terrify me. Now, it wasn't the fear of God, which I know the fear of God very well, and it is totally different. The fear that had a hold of me would cause me to suddenly scream and run down Main Street and just, sorry about them, run down Main Street and just at the top of my lungs screaming. And then I would wake up and I would hear someone screaming and find out it was me. I did that in a hospital where the two uh, male nurses were holding on to me, stopping me from screaming at the top of my lungs in the hall when they told me that I had suffered another nervous breakdown and that my mind had just snapped. I was 24 years old. Well, maybe 23 at that one. Because by the time I was 24, I already had four nervous breakdowns where my mind had snapped four times. And I remember how when the Lord came to me and started teaching me how to overcome fear. Oh, I was afraid of everything. You name it, I was afraid of it. And you say, well, that's impossible. I said, no, 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 no. Uh, I remember I loved horses and I was terrified of them. When I would go near them, I could literally feel the fear on my tongue. And I remember going like this. I determined that I was going to touch that horse. The horse is just standing there, and it's just a nice horse. And I went up to it, and I just started praising God. And I said, thank you, Jesus. Praise you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Until my hand touched that horse and just rested on him. And I was never afraid of a horse again. I can remember being thrown. I mean, thrown and flipped up in the air and fallen and getting the wind knocked out of me and hearing my husband tell my daughter, that was a real rodeo Buckley. You should have seen her. She flipped up in the air. And after that, I can remember when I got my senses back, I said, get me that horse. And I climbed back up on it and I rode it with no problems. But God took someone who was terrified of them that could ride any horse, including one that bucked her off. I just sit there and I think how good God is. Now, if He could take me, who is nothing, nobody, and do that for me and teach me how to overcome my fear according to me, not according to you, according to me. Because as I praised Him, the fear was just like sticking a pin in a balloon, just going whoosh. Well, He did it a little bit slower. And when I can laugh. My husband used to tell everybody, even the neighbors, he would say, well, my wife tells me that the angels are with her, and I believe her. He says, the way she drives, I really believe her. Well, I didn't start driving till I was 42 because I was terrified. I could not get in a car. I was so terrified. So I get in this car, 2 o'clock in the morning. I slowly drive to where the highway is, where there's no traffic, and it's 2 o'clock in the morning. and I go on a straight path that I know for miles it's going to be straight. I didn't know what I was going to do. Everything I do spontaneously. He leads me. He just grabs me and says go, and I find myself there. So there I was. I could see way in a distance a headlights coming, and I began to become terrified. The closer I got, the more frightened I got. And and I knew me. I know that when I'm frightened, I will literally go right straight to whatever I'm frightened of. I didn't know why I did that, but I knew what I was like. So I took a hold of that wheel and I held it steady and straight like this, and then I closed my eyes and I can hear that car pass by me. And all the time when I had my eyes closed, I was going, thank you, Jesus. Praise you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Praise your holy name. And that is how I learned how to drive. That is how I was able to overcome that fear of whatever it was. Whereas fear, like I told you, used to be so bad. Anywhere I drove, I was never afraid. Never. Anywhere I went, you name it, I was never afraid. It was really something to see and understand how God could take a person who had so many fears. Now, we are talking about 50 years ago. 50 years ago, when I was so terrified. I was just learning about who God was. I don't consider myself reborn at the time because I didn't know what reborn was. I didn't know anything until Jesus Christ himself came to me. And so I think of a I I got another laughter. Remember the time I told you that I was like 29 and I left my husband, and how God healed him and delivered him 50 years ago of drinking. And and I'll tell you, it was really something because my brother, he had a lot of pull in the town that we were in. He was very, oh my goodness, he just had so much influence with everybody, whether, no matter who it was. So I wanted a driver's license. I wanted to learn how to drive bad. So my brother had a little Pinto, and it was a straight stick. And I drove about 3 miles down the road on a dirt road and back, and that was all the experience I had in driving. And then he and then he set it up that I could take a test with a cop, with a policeman. I never had any trouble with a straight stick. I mean, it was from the day one I touched that clutch, boom, no problems, no jumping, no nothing. But I never was in an automatic. So I get in the car. I know nothing about cars, gears, nothing. I only knew what he taught me on that little Pinto. So I get in the car, and the policeman's sitting next to me, and I put one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas. And he says to me, he says, lady, he says, you would have flunked right then and there. He says, but I'm going to tell you. And he, let me know what was the gas and what was the... I mean, stop to think about this. This is crazy. And so he says, lady, let's go down the road. Now, in the town that we lived on, there wasn't just that he was taking me to have a test. There wasn't just 2 lanes. There was like 4 lanes on that side and 4 lanes on that side. That was a big town. And he has me drive through it, and I've never driven a car before. I don't think he let me go very far. And what he did was is he he had me pull up and not even park. He had me pull up and stop, and he said, "Look, because I have been asked to give you a license, you will get one." He said, "But I'm asking you to do me a big favor. Don't drive on the road." I was terrified. I couldn't drive on any road, but I got a license. I just found it the other day. But that didn't mean I drove. I didn't drive. I was 29 then, and I didn't drive until I was 42. But can you imagine somebody giving another person a license when they don't know anything? They put their foot on the gas and on the and on the brake at the same time. And then they tell them, "Don't drive." So there I am, all those years in between, terrified to drive. But you know, God is so wonderful, so good to us, more than we realize. I don't suggest anybody learn how to drive like I did. I'm not telling you that. Please don't go there and do that, because I don't know if God would do the same thing with you, because I know why he did it with me. With the kind of background I had and everything, please don't take that as advice, because I'm not giving anybody any advice. I'm not telling you what to do and how to do it. I will tell you, though, I was afraid of dogs. I was afraid of cats. I was afraid of, you name it. I was afraid of animals. I was afraid of everything. And we wound up on a farm with a half-wolf dog. And that half-wolf dog, he never barked. He never growled. He never warned you that he was going to attack. All he ever did was lift up his hair like that, and you knew that you were in trouble once he lifted up his hair. That was it. You knew he was going to nail whatever it was. And when he did that at me one time, it wasn't me. I grabbed him, picked him up, and he weighed, I was little at the time. I wasn't very strong. He weighed at least 65, 75 pounds, I don't know. And I picked him up like this and threw him up against the wall. And he slid down and cowered at my feet and never challenged me again. Never. Without even thinking. You know, like I said, without even thinking, like the attack dog. I mean, imagine a snarling Doberman with their face and their teeth right there, right at you. It's the end of their chain, and they can't get you, but they want you. And they're just slobbering with, blah, you know. And I had to pass it how many times in order to go see someone I was ministering to that needed help real bad. And that dog, there was just a little narrow passageway where you could barely fit passing that dog. And that's when the Lord said, I'm fed up with this. And all I did was, is when that dog leapt up like that, I reached up and touched it like this, and boom, it fell to the ground at my feet and never ever once growled at me, nothing. So I learned not to be afraid of dogs. The last time I was faced with an attack is I had a Doberman, and I was walking on the street in my Florida, my first trip to Florida, and out from a yard come two big, heavy pit bulls, and they just attack mode after my Doberman, and I knew I would die before I'd let them kill my Doberman. And those two come running and snarling and everything. And I stood there and I said, "Get out of here. Go home." And they obeyed me. That was God. That wasn't me. My poor little lady, she would have been mauled to death. She was not a fighter. She was so gentle and so sweet. But they say the dogs take up your personality. In your house, your animals, if you're vicious, you're cruel, and you're mean, chances are so will your dog be. If you're terrified and always afraid, chances are so will your dog be that way. My dogs were very brave. My half wolf dog was so brave. I mean, my goodness. He would have died for us. And I had so many of the best, most beautiful dogs. And I outlived them all. And that's the heartache of it, is having dogs that only live 10 years. And you live a long life, you outlive them all. And I'm fortunate now I have little Smashy. That this isn't meant to be about animals. This is meant to tell you something. This is meant to help you understand that no matter where you are, no matter who you are, no matter what situation you're going through, He helps and pulls you through it. When you're standing there and you see a snake, and the biggest black snake I ever saw, its body had to be this big and round. It fell out of a tree my husband was cutting down, and you could see the body of it just fall right down. It was so big and heavy. Never seen, it was a black snake, but never seen anything like it. And I was terrified of snakes. I mean, literally terrified. But because I was in a real closed area, and if the horses that I was in there with would have panicked, I could have got killed, they could have got hurt, anything. And because it was an old barn, and it had some tin in it, and it was a barn that we were going to tear down, but at that time that was all we had, and we did tear it down. But the point is I was in there talking to the horses and petting the horses, and I looked down and I saw this big black body slithering like this, real slow. And if I would have panicked, those horses would have panicked. And they both would have tried to get out the door and hurt themselves or trampled me. But God is so good. When I saw that snake, I had no fear whatsoever. Not because I knew it was a black snake and it wasn't poisonous. Not because of any of those things. Because I have been in the presence of water moccasins, copperheads. I watch people kill copperhead right where I would be locked in a cellar, where somebody cut off its head, because it would be right on the steps that I would have to pass through up and down in order to get to where I was at the age of 10 years old, locked in a cellar, so that I could do all the laundry and make sure that I would never leave there until it was completely done. And I did it for 8 people. And so during those years, I was terrified. I mean, literally terrified of everything. Because I never knew when the next pain was going to come. When you stood before a man and all you said was you tried to explain something to him, and he would go whap like that to you. you know, you get kind of scared. You're just nothing but a little kid, and you get wrapped around like that. So you hover in a corner, afraid. So then the fears grow after that, because you become emotionally ill because you can't handle the stress of not knowing when the next beating is going to come, when you're going to find your mother falling on the floor because she'd been beaten so bad. You don't know. You're just a little girl. You're not a guy. You're a little girl. And you don't know how to pray. And everybody around you knows how to pray, but you don't know how to pray. You don't even know what they're doing. You don't even know there's a God. All you can do is just hover. Why do you think it is so important for these little ones that are being mutilated? They don't even know what's going on. And somebody comes and whispers evil things into their ears to get them to do things that are so bad. Why do you think that troubles me? It should trouble you. Being so tormented and so tortured, mentally, emotionally, physically, was very, very difficult. And on top of it all, I was isolated. I was never permitted to have a friend, never allowed to have anybody, nobody to talk to. And I did not know how to pray. Whatever you went through in life, chances are somebody taught you how to pray. But think about the little ones. And I'm not talking about little ones from other countries. I'm talking about American little ones, the ones that you should be taking care of your own household first. The day I lived in, a father would never, he might beat you, but my father would have never gone past disrespecting my body in the way that most men do now. And I say most men because I'm telling you, a lot of them do it. A lot of them. You cannot go into pornography and still wind up with pedophilia because the two of those things go together. One leads into the next one. The thrill of whatever you're doing wrong is not enough. It's like drugs. It's not enough. This is not enough to do. So the rush that you get, that's not enough. So you have to do more and more and more. Well, that's what sin is like. You have to do more and more and more. The wicked wax worse. And especially when you positive you're not wicked and you use God to say that you're not. And you're positive God is hiding your sin. You use God's word to prove that he hides your sin. Or you're associated with people who believe that Jesus is evil and because he holds you to sin. He holds you responsible. And you go to him and get your sins covered with the blood. And these people think that's so evil. And if you're not like them, they think you're vile. You're just the scum of the earth. But you know that stuff that goes through the air that makes you think this way? That causes people to think they're better than others? That because they are of this religion, they are the best? No one is like me. Because they follow this doctrine, they are the best. They're nothing. God don't want them. God don't care about them. I'm going to dust my feet off on them. That's why God said the prostitutes are going to be in the kingdom of heaven and you're going to be out. Because, like I said, they know they're sinners. And when God comes and speaks to them, they fall to their knees. And he who is forgiven much loveth much. But you've been brought up to know better. You've knew about Jesus all of your life and would not live him. You had a form of godliness, but you denied the power thereof. You, the one that had religion all your life and refused it. Refused to believe that God was real. And that he does the same miracles that he's done in Acts. You see, he who has been forgiven much will believe in those miracles. You know why? Because they're saved out of the trauma of what happened to them. They actually see a living God, come and take that away out of their life. They have the power and the ability to know that He's real, and you cannot take it off of them. You cannot say, because when they walk into the doors of a church and they've been through it all, they've been pulled out of the worst kind of hell you could think of mentally and emotionally, and then you treat them like they're garbage. Why? Because they don't labor in your church to promote you to make you something. Because you never saw what they went through. They're nothing. So you know what God did? He decided, I am going to take every soul that finds me on their knees and prove they are mine. I am going to take every soul that takes that Bible and walks with Jesus and finds me without all of these who think they have it all. I'm going to prove I'm with them. Because I take nothing and make it into something, and you think you're something, and you make them into nothing. And guess what happens? God will make you nothing because you think you're something. You've never suffered a thing in your life. You've never endured any hardship or any pain. You've always been blessed. You've always had enough. You don't know what it's like to be poor. You don't know what it's like to be raped. You don't know what it's like to be almost murdered. You don't know what it's like to be anything. But you sit in judgment of everyone that goes to Jesus Christ. And because of your doctrine, you're positive they'll never get in. Because they didn't go your way. There's only one true doctrine. Jesus has come in the flesh. He came in the flesh in me and in them. When they asked God to enter in, and they were willing to give up their life for Him and do what He wanted them to do, He came in the flesh. But He overcame the flesh. It's like He said, be of good cheer. I overcame the world. There's the world, the flesh, and the devil that will try you, that will try to get back in. Once God cleans you up, He'll bombard you to try to get back in. He'll tempt you with this, He'll tempt you with that, and He'll leave a lot of damage in the wake. And if you don't have pastors that know how to minister to someone like you, oh man, you're like I was. You'll go crazy with it because you won't know what to do. You won't know where to go, and they'll reject you everywhere you go because they see your mountain of problems. They don't want no parts of it. They're sitting safe. Why would I want to help anybody do this? Why would I want to help anybody to do that? Now, I'm not talking about you picking up people who are Satanists. I really believe there's a line of demarcation with someone who leaves the Bible and goes to Satan directly and knows that this is God, and they claim He is God, and they know it. They know this is God, but they don't want to obey. They don't want to listen, so they go and do every evil thing they could. And some of them are so ignorant, they think, well, all I got to do is, because once saved, always saved, all I got to do is go back to God. I'll have my fun over here. They think they're outsmarting God. I'll have my fun over, if it's adultery, I'll do adultery because I can, I'm saved. I can do it. I can do all things. I'm saved. I can kill this one. I can destroy that one. I can do it all. And I'm saved because Jesus died to save me. So therefore, I'm going to get into heaven. Because Jesus was merciful and He come to save me. Well, Jesus was merciful. and he came to save all those little ones you destroyed. He came to save all those babies that you are helping kill. He said it is better for a millstone to be tied around your neck and to be dropped into the deepest sea than to offend, I mean just offend, one of these little ones that believe in me. So that little one who's in school, that they never notify the parents and they do a mastectomy on her. They never notify the parents and they teach them all about sex. But those parents, they've got God and they don't know it. God would never desert a mother. He will never desert a father. When you feel something wrong, it's wrong. Too many women don't want to be alone. So when they feel something and they invite a man into their house, he lives with them. That's a sin as it is. And they have that child there, which means nothing to them. Because if that child meant anything, they would never put them in that kind of influence. And that mother, she'll feel something's wrong. Something's wrong when I leave to go to work. I feel my daughter's in danger or my boy is in danger. But, that's just me. Go home as happy as a lark. Everything is fine. But God keeps tapping you on the shoulder and telling you something's wrong. Something is dreadfully wrong. Watch out for your baby. Don't let that man come in and do that. And sometimes it takes them to catch the man. And sometimes they don't catch him and he kills that baby. Sometimes, if he's not raping it, he's killing it. Why? Because you don't want to be alone. Because all you've got on your mind is you. But Jesus saved me and he's coming back for me. Common sense is out the window. You have none. You need to understand how God sees all of this. Oh, I know. You talk about this all the time and you do this. I know, and I'm just getting tired of it. Change the channel. Change the channel. Because the demons are tormented with the truth. Tells you clearly in the Word. If the truth torments you, you got a problem. And it's usually demonic. I don't care if you sit as head of a church. If it disturbs you that someone is telling the truth, and it torments you and you want to get rid of them, you've got a demonic problem. Because you see, the truth sets people free. And you don't care who's free or who's not free, as long as you're not disturbed. Do you ever see and walk into the presence of a dad or or just anybody, and they're busy maybe watching a TV show, and the child comes in, and it inconvenienced them. They can't watch their football game. Get out of here. Leave me alone. You know I'm watching this. Maybe that child was hurting. Maybe that child needed something. Or you're watching two people sleep in bed, and the baby comes in. Get him out of here. Get her out of here. Leave me alone. You're inconvenienced. You wake up in the morning, and the child wants to sit on your lap, wants to say hello, but it inconveniences you. I'm eating my breakfast. What's the matter with you? Can't you keep that kid where it belongs? Oh, wow. And they call you daddy? Or the mother. She's got on her mind all day long Her love is coming home, and that's all she thinks about. And these kids, they don't mean nothing. I have to feed them. I have to clothe them. I have to dress them. I have to do. Oh, what a chore. It is so hard to be a mother. Boy, if anybody would have asked me, I would have aborted this one a long time ago. Such a chore. It is so awful. Well, they give you 7 days in some states that you could decide to kill it. Like that awful preacher that preached. Babies come from hell. And they're so evil that they are so cute that you don't kill them. That's the only reason why you don't kill them. Sicko. Sicko. Babies come from heaven. A doctor will tell you that it is impossible for any birth to happen because the odds against that baby being born are so great that it takes a miracle to bring that baby into life, and you kill it, and you believe it's evil, and you, even if you have it, you hate it, and all that hatred. You're in your pregnancy and you're looking at it. Look what it's doing to my body. My man won't want me no more. Look, oh, how horrible. Oh, but you don't think that baby hears that. You don't think that baby feels hatred, not wanting. You don't think by the time that baby comes out of the womb, it's already born into a situation was not their fault. You're no different than the one that rubs their belly and says, kill Jews, kill Americans. What you've done in that baby in the womb is you've taken their seat of reasoning. You've taken the spot that God can talk to them. I call it the soul. You've taken that and overpowered it because you have the ability to do that. And with your own hands, you destroy it before it's born. What difference is there between you and somebody that aborts it and kills it? You've already killed it. Why? Selfishly, I gotta have this. I gotta be with so and so. Well, that's just a kid, so what? And that kid, that whole time, is hurting. They have proven even the worst murderer, which I consider the worst one, is Bundy. They proved God has you right here. He puts your baby, this is how you hold it, this is your baby's head, this, so that that baby could feed, whether it's from a bottle or breastfeeding. That baby's eyes will be looking on you. And there is a communication and a connection between mother and daughter or mother and son. And if they don't have that connection, that comfort, that love that can only come from a parent, or even a parent that adopts them at that age, somebody bonds them and brings love into their being, into their life, into their feelings. Love. They can't ever find a connection, a feeling of love anywhere. They have no love for themselves, no love for anybody. It never occurs to them that somebody else can suffer. All they want is to satisfy themselves, because you know why? When you decided you didn't want this, all you wanted was to satisfy yourself. And that's what they were born into. But it's all their fault. They did it all. they're the ones that I didn't do that to them. I didn't make them that way. Oh, now, didn't you? How do you think God is going to judge this world? Oh, but I'm innocent. I did the best I knew how to do. You need to face life as it is. I used to think just like that. Just like that. I did everything within my power. I did the best I knew how to do, which is true. I did. I did to the point and understanding of what I had. I did the best I knew how to do, but it was not good enough because God was not connected to it, and I didn't know how to get connected. Now, if that was my fault or wasn't that my fault, that was from the time I was little. I was the only one in the family that didn't know you could pray. Why was I blind? God says it wasn't because your parents sinned, and it wasn't because you sinned. It was because for the glory of God, I was going to take nothing and make it into something. So then you have people who will look at this and say, oh, I'm so terrible. I am so rotten. Even Paul the Apostle said that. Paul the Apostle said, I did not deserve God to come. I was the chiefest of all sinners. Did any of us deserve Jesus Christ to come and save us? No. Is it possible to earn it? No. Do we have Jesus Christ because we don't want to sin or we don't want to? No. We have Jesus Christ because he came and he died to save us. And he is the one that did the operation, not us. Yes, we have a choice. We can either follow him or we can follow our flesh. We can follow him or we can follow what our parents said and did. We can follow him or we can do what someone else tells us to do. Yeah, we're creatures of choice. We either choose him or not choose him. Every decision in your life, major decision, is by your choice. No matter what you say, no matter what you do, God will never force you to follow him. He is never going to force any man or any woman or any child to follow him. If you are forcing a child instead of teaching a child, if you are forcing them to obey because you don't have the patience or the love or the care for them, all you care about is when you take them to church, they better behave because I'm a Christian and everybody needs to know my child will behave. Wow. If that isn't a hypocrite, I don't know what is. Where they take them, and if they do anything wrong, you want a little robot there, and you'll spank them because spare not the rod, spoil the child. But you never sit them down and teach them why they should behave. You don't know why because you don't know how to behave. You're so ignorant that you will ask a child, now, Johnny, why did you do that? Johnny don't know. It's up to you to know. You have God. You claim, oh my goodness, why you're a teacher of babes. You know everything. You should have the answer as to why Johnny did. You know what the answer usually is as to why Johnny did? You. It all comes back full circle to you. So you say, okay, well, but this one, he seems to have his own personality. He seems to be headstrong. Well, look in the mirror, buddy. I told you, children take on what their parents are. You'll see them all over the internet. You'll see the most beautiful babies, and you'll see some of them are so vile that they don't even have the common sense to know to not let an infant suck on the chest of a man. What are you teaching that child? You don't have any sense that you need to teach it and take it and hold it and redirect it? Take it and pick it up from doing it, but you let it do that and you watch it do that and you film it. It's funny. The child don't know nothing. And you won't pick it up. You won't have respect for its body. You won't have respect for what's going to happen to it. You won't have respect for nobody, just yourself. And the person that sits there and watches them, it would make you sick to watch some of those. Little Jerry smacked Johnny right in the face. They're twins, and Ed just plowed into him. No, 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 don't do that. You don't pick them up and say no and talk to them. When you are a parent at a distance and you let them go and you're at a distance going, no, don't, no, no, don't, no, 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 or you laugh and you use a four-letter word and you laugh because they'll grow up and use the four-letter words. But that don't mean nothing. You don't even give them a chance in life. They're little babies, and they need a good teacher. They need somebody, first of all, to love them enough to care what happens to them. How many children that I used to see even in a Christian school? How sad. In a Christian school, those parents would drop them off, not care if they had a lunch, not care about nothing. I can live my life now. Dump them off and then come back and pick them up. Making them living targets to anything in life that would hurt them. Because you don't care. Fortunately for some of them, they do find God. Was I always the perfect parent? Was I always the perfect teacher? Was I always... No, I was just like you. I had to learn. I had to learn through my mistakes. Oh, there was a lot of things I didn't have any control over. And there was a lot of reasons why I stood and endured certain things. It was all because I really cared for the children. I really cared. When nobody else cared, I still cared. I'm laughing because I remember the guy that says to me, his parents, I guess, they went through a big mess and the church split up and everything went real bad. And he had the gall to say to me, where were you when I suffered all of this? Here he is, a grown man in his 40s and suffered this in his 30s, and he mistreated his children so bad that they became little clones like him and would have been really bad if somebody did not embrace them in love. And he says to me, where were you when I went through this? And all I said to him was this: taking care of your children. Because I did. I loved them more than those parents ever did. They were using them as tools to get whatever they wanted. They used them over here. They used them over there. Hey, I couldn't stop that. I couldn't teach that. I couldn't nothing. I barely could get out of where I was at. But the one thing I could do was love those kids, and I did. So you can judge me all you want. But I'm not according to your measurement. I was just coming out of a lot of stuff myself. And I think, too, my whole life changed because God decided to pull me out because he knew I was willing. I was willing to obey him. I didn't want to go into some of that, and I'm not trying to tear anybody down, because some of those people, and I'm sure that young man that did that, I'm sure they went through things that you would never even dream. And they had to dig their way out. But you don't dig your way out by blaming everyone else for it. You dig your way out by soul searching, by seeing what your part was and what your part is, and changing, not by pointing the finger and blaming everybody else. No matter how bad my dad was in the things that he did and the mistakes that he made, he still got saved in the end. He still turned his whole life around. And I have to respect that. When I think of him, I think of him fondly. I only use him as a testimony. If I had any hatred for him, or I had any memory of how bad it was, I'd be here crying what he did to me when I tell you. No, he didn't know any better. Like I told him, I said, Dad, your parents raised you a certain way, and they didn't know any better. Then you raised me a certain way, and you didn't know any better. My job is to make sure I know better, because I see the mistakes here and I see the mistakes here, and my job is to make sure I don't repeat them. That's your job also. Sure, you'll fall. Sure, you'll make mistakes. You're a human being. You're going to try to be perfect. That's what this dying to self to you is all about, is being perfect. You're never going to make perfection. You're never going to please everybody around you. You're never going to, because you can't. Man can't be pleased. If you're looking for that, for somebody to affirm that you have God, you're in the wrong pew. Because only he can tell you. Only he could make you feel better about who you were and where you went, what you did. Only he can forgive you. And once you go on the path of finding him, once you go to the spirit and not the flesh, he is no longer condemning you. He says so in Romans. But it is not a license to sin by telling you once saved, always saved. Because once you get off that path with the intention that I can come back, I got news for you. You haven't outsmarted him at all. Those of you that preach and teach that you can get off the path and come back and be of God just like that, you are dead wrong. Because once you go off, now you have to prove to God you'll never do it again. So he's not easily accepting. Oh, you can lie about it. You could pretend all you want. You could say, I got God and God this and God. You can do that all you want. But it don't matter. What matters is what he says, not what I say. I'm not judging you. I'm giving you a message of trying to waken some of you up to the truth. Has nothing to do with me.